I made my way across the muddy lawn as quickly as I could. Once I was under the awning over the porch, I kicked off as much mud off my boots as I could. I didn't want to contaminate the crime scene. Once I was in the house, I was greeted by several officers. Forensics was busy photographing and collecting evidence. Sergeant Henderson waved to me from the hall. "Do we have another one?" I asked him. He didn't have to answer. He gestured into the bedroom. It was covered in blood. Blood splattered from wall to wall, and in the center of the room was the body. William Carter, age 25, 2 priors for possession with intent to sell. A man from across the room said. I looked at him suspiciously. "I've been working homicide for 20 years. I know everybody here. Don't think I've seen you before," I said. The man smiled. "I'm Detective Samuels, narcotics," he said, and extended a hand. I shook his hand. "I appreciate your being here, Detective, but this is a homicide. If you want to arrest him for dealing, you're a little late. However, if you have any suspects, you let me know," I told him. "Actually, Detective, the chief asked me to give you a hand on this one," Samuel said. "I work alone. I've never had a partner. I don't need one now," I told him. Samuels looked around to see if anyone was listening. "To be honest, this is the 10th drug dealer murdered this year. Same M.O. I think the chief needs an arrest soon. And it's my understanding you are working under the assumption that it's a rival drug dealer taking out the competition, so I might be able to help." "Of course it is. 10 drug dealers killed in a year, all victims killed with a hammer. It seems obvious. Besides, the killer left the same gang graffiti on the front door of each house," I told him. Samuels walked out of the room and gestured for me to follow him. We went out the front door. The graffiti is a giveaway. It's the right wording for a set that I've been tracking, but the artwork doesn't match. Samuel sighed. "I think someone is posing as a rival, possibly to throw the police off their trail." "Have you told anybody about this?" I asked Samuels. He shook his head no. "Okay. You wrap things up here. I'm going to go home and get my files ready. Tomorrow we will sit down and get everything together. Maybe you can find something I missed." Samuel smiled and agreed. "If I help you catch this guy, do you think I could get into homicide? I'm getting a little tired of narcotics," he asked. "Yeah, possibly," I told him. It has stopped raining now. It's been a few hours, but the lawn at Samuel's house is still muddy. I was careful not to leave any footprints. I hope the rattle of spray paint can didn't wake him. I don't see any lights come on. I guess I'll figure out after I pick the lock. I told Samuel I've never seen him at a crime scene, and that was true, but I've seen him plenty of times. He was a crooked narc, and he was probably tired of narcotics because Internal Affairs had been investigating him for 6 months. I can't allow him to shift the blame to rival gang members. Besides, I'm just taking one more drug dealer off the streets before I retire next year. I plan to stop then. I probably will. Besides, I don't want a partner. I work alone. I took my seat at the back of the room. Within 10 minutes, the rest of the seats were filled. The defense attorney was there in the same row as myself. The front 2 rows were reserved for the victims' family members. There were so many people there, and yet only half of the victims were represented. 1 minute before midnight, the curtains opened, revealing a man handcuffed to the chair. He was clearly sedated, and yet he cried, "I didn't do it!" I could hear sobs from the man as well as victims as gas began to rise from the vents around the inmate's chair. "You're killing an innocent man," he mumbled, and then went limp. The coroner let the gas continue for another minute until the state executioner called the official time of death. A few of the family members thanked me for bringing them justice. They thanked me for convicting the serial killer that killed their loved ones. But for the most part, there was silence. Just the sound of sobs as people tried to grasp the last bit of closure. A few detectives shook my hand as I exited the room. Even the defense attorney gave me a nod of approval before leaving the room. I was the last one there. I watched as they interred the inmate and loaded his corpse onto a gurney. I felt a certain amount of pride as a district attorney being able to bring such a high-profile killer to justice. Elections were next month, and this is exactly what I needed to secure my re-election. I also felt a certain amount of relief knowing that I had gotten away with all those murders. Nobody would ever know that I was a seaside strangler, and I pinned it on somebody else. I sat in my car for a moment, took a couple of long breaths to steady my nerves. I thought I was done with this chapter of my life. I watched the house across the street for several minutes, making sure there wasn't any movement. This is the last time, I told myself. I just needed one more big score and I could pay my dealer the rest of the money I owed him. I had driven up and down this block all week. The yards were all huge and dark, plenty of distance so no one would see me. And I had picked this house for one particular reason. It was the only house without security cameras. I got out of the car and walked up to the house as casually as I could, scanning the road for anyone that might spot me. There wasn't anyone out. It took less than a minute to pick the lock on the door, and I was inside. I scanned the room looking for anything I could sell in the street. Bingo, I thought to myself as I spotted a buffet in the dining room. There was a large silverware display right out in the open. I loaded it into my bag. I was beginning to go up the stairs and raid the bedroom when I heard the first noise. Someone was talking downstairs in the basement. Shit, I thought. I wanted to run. No one was supposed to be home, and I did not want to go back to jail for another B&E. But I told myself a week in jail would be better than what my dealer would do to me if he caught me empty-handed tomorrow. Maybe I can just tie him up, I thought. Even if this rich guy has a gun, he won't risk dying in a gunfight over a couple of grand. This could work out. He could probably just tell me where the valuables are. I bet there's a safe. I'll need the combination. The thoughts continued. I crept to the door to the basement and opened it. I began to step down the stairs as quietly as I could. That's when I noticed the stench. It smelled like a zoo. There was a distinct smell of animal feces and urine. A few more steps and I heard the voice again. I realized that it wasn't somebody talking. It was a muffled scream. Again, I thought about running, but I needed to know now. I needed to know what the fuck was going on in that basement. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, I saw a man strapped to a table. He was fighting to free himself, but one of his arms was so much bigger than the other. It was much more muscular and covered in thick black hair. The two arms took turns pulling at the chains. Behind him were several cages. Each one had an animal in it. I stepped closer and saw that they were chimpanzees. The chimpanzees began to yell and squeal when they saw me. They grabbed at the bars on their cages and jumped about wildly. Then the man on the table saw me. He began to yell something. I rushed over and removed his gag. Unfortunately, that's when I had discovered that he'd been yelling, "Behind you!" I barely felt the needle jab into my neck. I don't know how long I was out, but I woke on a similar table to the man next to me. A doctor was standing there in a surgical outfit. He checked my pupils with a pen light. "I'm glad you're finally awake. I don't know why you broke into my house last night, but I'm glad you did. My other guest here didn't make it. He wasn't compatible, and the transplant didn't take." I looked over to see the man with the chimpanzee arm was now dead, laying just a few feet from me. "Please, let me go. I'm sorry," I broke in. "You can let me go. I won't tell anyone," I began to beg. No. Relax. You will be fine here. I will take care of you. Now, I have to go to work. That should make you feel better. I'm one of the best heart surgeons in the world. When I get back, we will check on your progress. You will be fine for now. Your stitches are looking good." With that, the doctor walked out. Stitches? I thought to myself. The drugs were still making me groggy. It was hard for me to lift my head, but when I did, I almost wished I hadn't. One of my arms and both of my legs had been removed and replaced with chimpanzee legs. I will be gone by the time anyone reads this, but I need to get the word out to as many people as possible. The world is about to be destroyed by an alien invasion. Most of the population will be destroyed, and the survivors will be kept as slaves. There is nothing we can do to stop it. But you need to know that there are no aliens in this invasion. I own a private security company that protects some of the wealthiest elites in the world. This morning, I was part of a detail of 5 men protecting a client while he attended a board meeting in Berlin. Unfortunately, my client left a memo behind when he dropped him off. It reads as follows. Operation Downpour is to commence in 24 hours. As per our successful simulations, the board has agreed to continue with the operation as soon as possible. All board members are urged to travel to your designated bunkers for 6 months. During the first week, saucer-shaped drones will approach all major cities and attack. Simulations estimate the death toll at approximately 3 billion useless eaters. The members of this council have enough influence in the media to ensure only our narrative is seen. Within a week of the initial strike, our operations at the UN will announce to the world that they have made contact with the aliens and have negotiated a ceasefire. Our operatives will at that point make known our demands. 1. There is to be only one government. 2. There is to be no religion. 3. All food, shelter, and medicine will be only provided by the government and only to those who have been chipped to show their compliance. Our simulations estimate approximately 70% of the survivors will comply. Most who do not will starve or freeze. Our drones and strike teams will continue to eliminate the rest over the next 6 months. After that, all simulations show it will be safe to emerge and assume power as the Committee of the New World Order. That is the end of the letter. I thought it was a joke at first, but when I had returned to my office, my assistant told me that my client had called and asked if we had found a memo in the vehicle. Before I could call him back, I heard gunshots downstairs. I can see from my CCTV system that everyone is dead. My employees are top tier, the best of the best, and all of them are dead. A hit squad is coming down my hallway now in full kit, wearing shit I have never seen before. I'm going to die fighting. When you see aliens on the news in a couple of days, make sure you warn as many people as you can. They are not aliens.